Perfect. Everything is up and running. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another session, another Friday, another session. I hold these sessions on a weekly basis, and I bring topics that I find interesting throughout my work week. Hang on 1 second. There's an echo here. My apologies. Something was echoing. Now we're good. And this session has two clear purposes. Purpose number one is to educate you, give you information, make you better investors. Session number two, purpose number two, surprise to prize. Hopefully you like what you're hearing, you like what you're seeing, you can relate, and then you come and work with us. What does it mean? Well, we help investors invest in real estate, shockingly, all the time, in multiple areas of the US, in multiple metros. We have teams on the ground, and people like the person who contacted me, for example, just 20-ish minutes ago from New York and said, we're interested. We're looking at one of the markets we know you're already operating in, but we need some help. We have some questions. We need some guidance. We need some directions. We're not sure who to trust, etc. All of that is what we do here and Simply Do It on a daily basis. Find metros, set up local teams to trusted, vetted local teams, and then start looking at opportunities, properties to help you invest in real estate to make your life financially better. Very simple. That's what we're all about. I've been doing it for many, many, many years. Tons of experience, lots of experience, multiple metros around the US. And honestly, yes, one of the reasons I'm doing this session is to entice you to come and work with us. But in the process, you gain some knowledge, you gain some information, and hopefully you will benefit from it, whether you work with us or not. Of course, I'd rather you do, but nonetheless, you can benefit from this. Before I start, I want to kind of share a little piece of information I learned last night. I went to a real estate meeting, and there was a panel, and one of the people in the panel mentioned that he just came earlier yesterday from a conference in LA about regarding the lending world. And one of the new terms that it's being used and coined is QB. It's on my Facebook page, QB or non-QB. QB, qualified borrower. Remember, he's coming from a lending conference, and a non-QB. I think that's going to be one of the terms we're going to hear in the coming years. Or non-qualified borrower actually means subprime borrowers. It's a laundry term that was coined to not use the subprime borrowers. Again, for those of you who don't know, for those of you who have been long enough, you may know the subprime melt that we had 10 years ago. Subprime means that a lot of borrowers that were unqualified to borrow the amount they borrowed, or unqualified to borrow at all, still got qualified by aggressive lenders or lending practices. That's actually one of the things, or probably the main thing, that led into the 2007-8 crisis 10 years ago, 11 years ago. At the time, it was called the subprime mortgage meltdown, the subprime crisis. Nowadays, we are definitely seeing already some lending guidelines get loosened up after a decade of since the crisis. So a decade later, we're starting to see some things get loosened up, or some creativity in the sense in the lending environment. One of the major conflict, in my opinion, this is, by the way, what I'm saying here is just unrelated directly to the topic. I'm just kind of bringing it up as a piece of information that I found interesting last night. one of the major conflict in this lending practices is that banks make their money when they lend. They're not making their money on the loan, on the debt itself. They're making money primarily on the product that it's called debt. When I sell you a mortgage, or when you take a mortgage from my bank, as a banker, the banker, get some sort of a fee, and that's how I generate an income. So it's in their best interest to sell as much debt as possible, because that's how they generate a lot of the income. Obviously, that is inherently conflict of interest, and that's what happened 10 plus years ago that led to the subprime crisis or meltdown. Nowadays, it seems it's definitely not, or at least not I'm seeing yet, that a decade the regulation or the lending practices are as terrible as 10 years ago and more and longer. But we may be seeing some signs of loosening up a little bit, or creativity on the lending side that is hopefully not going to lead to the same situation. So in new term, subprime was 10 years ago, a big word. Now it seems like there's a new term involved, which is called non-QB, non-qualified borrower, aka subprime. Just a new term coined or laundered, and I just wanted to share that with you. I found it very, very interesting. Interesting to learn. Now, this is just a kind of a quick side note that I wanted to bring and share. I'm out there at the events and meetings and learning, so I just thought it's kind of interesting, annoying and interesting at the same time. Now, let's move forward to the topic of today, which is about ways you can possibly or likely to eliminate, reduce possible fraud when you're investing in real estate. Now, interestingly enough, about 10 days ago, one of my new clients called me up and said, Danny, I have a very simple question. How do I make sure that when I buy a piece of real estate, there's not some sort of a conspiracy or some sort of a ways to con or fraud me as a consumer? What can I do? How can I protect myself? And I just thought it's just a great question. Actually, I was surprised that I'm not being asked that, quite often. And here are a couple of pointers that I want to suggest. I want to let you know. I want you to be informed in order for you to be able to mitigate the chances of something like this happening. I'm not saying it's a common practice that happens out there, but definitely something. Sorry, someone distracted me. One second, please. Sorry about that. I got a little distraction here. But I think if you're aware of those things, you can, be knowledgeable and avoid a situation that will happen to you. So let's talk about a few of those things. Number one, you're looking at a property, right? You want to see maybe someone, who's the owner? Are you working with a company that maybe kind of, you're not sure? Do they own the property? Is it someone else? Where is the property coming from, etc.? You know what? It's very easy to go on the public records and see who's the owner of the property. You have to go on the county public records, search by address. Most counties, it's not that easy, but if you do, county records, real estate search, property search, you should be able to find who owns the property. Now, in most cases, there's going to be some name of a person or people that own the property, and they may be able to, you'll be able to see who they are, see the names. You don't, sometimes you'll be able to see that there's a mailing address, and a property address, and they match. That makes sense in most cases. Now, not always that's going to be the case. Sometimes people own property under an entity or under some trust or some other LLC or something like this. So it's not always going to tell you. But if you're trying to mitigate and find what's going on with the property and who's owning it, and you kind of want to make sure maybe the person that is involved in buying is not doing, maybe doing some shady practices or not fully disclosed. I don't want to be, pointing fingers, at all. Then you can go online and search who is the owner of the property. Very simple, right? So that's one way. Is that, will help, kind of, it's a puzzle of information. It's one more piece of the puzzle. Second, typically, we work with a title and escrow. Title is very much involved in making sure we are buying the property, with no title issues, and then recording the property to our name once we purchased it. It takes a little bit of time after closing, but that's how it works, right? So that's the part, the title. I like to call the title and escrow like the two sisters who have different functions, but very much work together. Escrow is the company that usually puts all the documents for the closing together, sets up all the the transaction documents, the balance sheet for the transaction, kind of make sure all the funds are properly coming in, flowing in and out as they should. So that's escrow. Escrow is very much responsible to make sure the transaction is done correctly and properly, documents and numbers or dollar amount. And title is mostly on the title of the property, things that are related to the title of the property. First of all, there is no obligation to use title and escrow, right? You don't have to, but it's very common practice. Actually, it's well worth it. It does cost a little bit of money. It's not expensive. Title even can generate you a title insurance in case something was missed with the title. So title and escrow are very important component in using here because they have that element of representing the authenticity of the deal. They're not representing the seller or the buyer per se, although one of them is paying them or both of them. There you want to make sure the property or the transaction is being done properly. Now comes the question, who are the title and the escrow, and can I really trust them? Maybe something is wrong about those companies. Well, that's a very good question. How do you tackle that? Well, title and escrow are under the regulator bodies of the state. Usually title is under the insurance, and maybe wrong here, but usually is under the insurance regulator. And I think escrow is under the real estate. I'm not sure, but usually they're regulated and they need either a certificate, license, bond, or something from the state to operate in that, in that field, right? So the state is supervising and they need to generate those licenses, numbers, certification. Again, could be somewhat different from one state to another. By the way, many states in the US do not require an attorney to be involved in the transaction, right? So some states are what's called title states, and some states are attorney states. For example, Illinois and Georgia, and I think Louisiana, all transactions, real estate transactions, are done in an attorney's office. Maybe other states as well. I haven't checked them all. But just as an example, many other states, you don't need to do it in an attorney's office. Title and escrow is enough. Title and escrow do have attorneys either on, in-house or as a consultant. And the attorneys in situation like this are only getting involved there when there are issues, legal questions, or some challenges or some problems. So they are more of a something in the background. But title and escrow still need to have license or certificate or bond to operate. You can always go on the state website. Let's say you go into Tennessee and you say Tennessee, search for title insurance or title company insurance, and you can search and you can see that the title company you're working with have a valid active license or approval to operate, and same thing for the escrow. And you can match between, here's the company name, here's their address, here's everything, and you can tell they are a legit company. Everything I'm saying here is just you making sure you are working with a legit company, title and escrow, before you interact with them, on the transaction. So you can do that, not a problem. You can check. That's one of the things I love about US real estate. I know we have people that are US based here listening to this, and we have people that are not based in the US and are not really used to those things. Well, for those of you who are not in the US, I want to tell you that one of my favorite things of buying in the United States is a lot of transparency. And actually, real estate is heavily regulated. The heavily regulated aspect creates transparency and creates accessibility to a lot of information online, which makes it easier to transact, makes it safer to transact. So all those things that we can search for ourselves, we don't need the experts to look for them, and may take us a few good minutes when we are beginners, maybe a little bit less when we know we've done it before, but it just creates a much safer environment to transact to begin with, because of the regulation and because of the the transparency. So keep that in mind. If you're not sure who the title company is, who the escrow company, go online, search, make sure they're active, approval, or they have the correct credentials to conduct their businesses. By the way, just so you know, there are maybe 4 or 5 nationwide companies in this field of title and escrow. You can always pick one of those. Chicago Title is one of them. First American is another one. I can't remember. There's another 2 or 3 names. I just don't remember right now. You can use them, and just by using a national name with a president in every state creates that a little bit, comfort zone. So title and escrow, check them if you're not sure for license, and then okay, this is a legit company. They have their licenses up and running, so that's a good way to go about it. So we talk about that. Next, hold an inspection. Hold an inspection, right? Very trivial. Well, not everybody understands how important it is. I've done that mistake too. Sometimes I was convinced or was told in the past that maybe we don't need to hold an inspection. You know what? I think an inspection is so cheap, relatively. You might as well go ahead and do it in any event. Don't let a GC or a realtor or anyone tell you not to do that, right? In my opinion, always hold an inspection, always. So why? Because it creates another layer of transparency, another checks and balances in the process. If you're having any thoughts that someone may call the relative inspector to the house, just find a random inspector, schedule it yourself, and have that random inspector go to the house, no problem, right? So hold an inspection. That, again, creates that level of transparency to the property, to what's going on. So we talked about title and escrow, public records, inspector, and then lastly, public. Yeah. Lastly, what I want to say is this: one of the biggest frauds in this industry is actually not about the property itself, is actually wiring funds to and mainly from title companies. Title companies are very weary the past 2 years about sending money to sources that are not directly related to the deal. And I'll give you an example. Let's say I have a property that I'm selling and I need the money to go into my personal account. It doesn't really happen, but just as an example. And the company, the title to the property is related to an entity, and that entity, doesn't have a bank account at the moment. Again, that's not the real situation, but I'm just giving you an example I've seen before. The escrow doesn't want to wire the money to that person, although that person is the manager or owner of the LLC. Just as an example, right? So they're very, very concerned about that. I have seen or have heard of situations where, for some reason, an email a few days before closing was sent to a seller, telling him the routing or account number has changed. The email seems exactly very legit, and they just went through and wired the money to receive the money from someone or wire the money to title, to the wrong place, and the money is gone. So just be aware of that. The best practice is contact every time by phone. I know it's a little bit hurdle. Contact, the title or escrow person, company by phone. Confirm the account numbers. Confirm, confirm the account number. Confirm the routing number. All those details by phone. And make sure you actually call the company. Don't call a number off of email, because if that's a fraudulent email, then they will send you a number that leads to the fraudster, and he or she will confirm that the details. So go online, find their number, call them to the main office or something like this, and confirm it. I know it requires a little bit of a hustle, but guess what? That little hustle will save you a lot in the future. By the way, many times title and escrow are saying, call the office before we wire. We want to double, triple confirm those numbers. So be aware of that. There's a lot of fraudulent activity happenings around the wires. Be aware. Be very, very aware. Those are the main thing I want to cover to kind of decrease the chances of fraud, decrease the chances of you being conned or anything. I hope you should not take it to in the wrong direction, that this is common practice, but being aware, understanding how things work will help protect yourself. That's a whole gist or the essence of this session. So the things that I talked about: check public records for the ownership to make sure it matches what you know. That's one. For example, if there's a contract or an offer, you're making on a property, you can match those names. So public records, use inspector. You can use someone randomly. That's number two. In order to make sure nobody's sending their brother-in-law to the house if you're afraid about that. Check the license, certificate or bond of title and insurance companies online with the state before interacting or working with them. Double, triple, quadruple confirm, wire information on the phone with the number that you can get off the website of the company for title and escrow. So be aware of that as well. And of course, do work with title and escrow. That will help you quite a lot. We have 5 minutes left, and within those 5 minutes, if we have questions, I'll definitely address them. I am seeing a lot of people today, so I'm just gonna very happy. I'm actually seeing my next meeting here as well, so hopefully I'm not gonna be late. My next meeting, and if you have questions, that's a great time to put us in a comment. Like I said earlier, I hold this session every Friday with a clear goal of educating you. That's number one. And obviously to engage with you in actually investing in real estate. Hopefully you're seeing this and you will next call us up and say, Dani, I want to invest. What should I do next? All right. So this is what I do day in, day out. You can consume or listen or have access to this information in 3 different avenues. Number one, right here on Facebook, right here. Number 2, you don't see it, but it's on YouTube as well. And number 3, the podcast. I'm listening, this is going on the podcast. We have 2 podcast channels, English and Hebrew. Both of them are doing very well in terms of downloads. Every session here goes on the podcast. The Hebrew one, obviously, is a different session, different sessions as well. You are most welcome to consume them. And I will try to look for the one in Hebrew link so I can give you some, make it easier for you to find it. Now, those of you who are interested in investing, usually what we do is we set up a time to speak. No strings attached. We're just going to talk for half an hour-ish, maybe 45 minutes, no problem. And the whole goal of that session is not for me to sell you on investing. I'm not going to do that. is more about me trying to understand what's holding you back, what questions you have, and how can I and my team help you make progress with investing in real estate. That's what we do day in, day out. I've been doing it for 16, 17 years. I've been involved in more than 4,500 rental purchases around the country, around the US, multiple metros. I've been here before the crash, through the crash of 2008, and of course, after the crash, I'm still here. And I bring all that knowledge, experience, good, bad, okay, into the mix, trying to help you invest in real estate, trying to help you maximize your returns, maximize your safety in investing, like this session. So with that said, I see, so you're most welcome to get in touch with us through Facebook, through our website, through any of the channels. I think I'm just all over the net, so it's easy to find me, I hope. I definitely hope. And we can talk. Let's talk for 30 minutes or so, maybe 45, and we see if there's a good fit between what we are all about and what you're trying to accomplish. Easy as that. Guarantee, no sales pitch. I'm not gonna convince you to buy, and I'm not gonna sell you product or books or tapes or anything like that. It's all about you and investing and how we can help you with the systems and processes and checklists we've put together over the many years. With that said, I'm gonna wrap it up for today because I have another meeting starting in 1 minute. My dear friend who's already here, please give me a minute to get ready. And I think it's a wrap. So have a terrific rest of your day, a terrific weekend, and Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Bye-bye.